back, Sunrisers. If you're just tuning in, you're just in time for Rise and Shine. Now, in honor of Parent Month, for this Rise and Shine, we'll be exploring the experience of raising children as a deaf parent. We'll hear firsthand from Neville, a father who navigates both the joys and hurdles of raising hearing children in a world that isn't always accessible. And Abraham and Tony, well, Antoinette, I learned today, his children who bridge the gap between the deaf and hearing worlds. Welcome JSL interpreter Antoinette Aiken, UE student JSL interpreter Abraham Aiken, and Dad, deaf culture facilitator and deaf community liaison officer Neville Aiken. Good morning, Aikens.
Morning.
Thank you so much for being here with us today. I want to start with you, Neville, and I would love to tell us a little bit about your family and, you know, what it was like being a deaf parent.
For me, being a deaf parent is really normal. Many people think that it's different, but when my children were born, I realized that I can raise them. The first thing that we have to use is sign language. You know, in a hearing household, they'll speak, but in our household, we'll sign, and that's normal. Most times, the first language is sign language. So that's basically what it is.
And both your parents, both you and your wife were deaf, correct? So it was both parents who...
Yes, both are deaf.
Right. I want to know, I know this was... I know you said you don't know any other way because this is your normal. But as a hearing person, it seems so much harder to me of how this actually happens. Like, I want to know how you cuss them when you need to cuss them big and serious. when Tony get trouble, I want to know, you say, look here, man.
That's why I'll tell you again, it's really normal. Communication, other people's perspective, they'll feel. Deaf parents raising hearing children is not good enough, but it's not true. Abraham, he went to a deaf school first. Tony went to a hearing school first. But before, both of them had different paths. But when I got married, my wife and I, we had a discussion and we decided to put Abraham, to test Abraham in a deaf school. My mother and my father were like, no, you can't do that. And I was like, he'll be fine, he'll go to a deaf school. By 3, he was signing. He wasn't speaking at all. And anything they would give him, he would sign, thank you. And then my mother, you know, would get upset. And then eventually he would transition and he was able to speak and sign. He was in another school. And when he finally said the word thank you, grandparents were excited. So it doesn't matter. He was able to transition in both spaces.
You mentioned earlier that a lot of deaf parents decide to actually maybe send their children to hearing family members because they don't feel capable to raise a hearing child when they're deaf. Speak to us a little bit about your decision to go against that grain.
It's really sad because coders, children of deaf adults, deaf parents, they're supposed to have sign language skills. Coders are supposed to. They're supposed to be skilled. But when I was young, I recognized that many coders, they can't sign. And I was wondering why. Because their parents would put them with their grandparents or some family member. And when I looked on, when I became an adult, I realized that I must have my children with me. So see, both of my children, it's proof. They're both great interpreters and they are both well educated.
And great people, which is the best part. I want to talk to you both a little bit about your experience as children of deaf adults. And what I know it's normal for you. You don't know any other way. So tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up in your home.
Oh, me first. Oh, so I'm way older than my brother, as you can see. So I grew up in the 90s, and and at that time, it was a little bit more difficult. It wasn't as accessible as it is now. So I had to be more of an advocate for my parents in certain spaces. But I would say growing up with deaf parents is pretty awesome. Like, there's no culture or no people that I have experienced that are like the deaf community. When you talk about family, close connected, close knitted, and we're talking about the entire deaf community, not just my parents. We're all connected, and I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. I mean, it made me who I am today. And my father is a strong man.
Me afraid I am. I tell you the truth. I asked the question, how him could have cost me for true.
Yes, my father is a strong man, so I wouldn't trade my father or my mother or my stepmother for any other experience. It was a valid and great experience.
I want to talk a little bit about how it shaped you, how it, you know, even your decisions about what you go on to do in your life. How does this experience shape you?
Well, it has allowed me to see the value in certain things. Like, for example, going to school, I know I have deaf parents and it's not something I'm ashamed of. So it helps me to be more courageous. And, you know, I can tell people, hey, my parents are deaf. I'm proud of them because here I am. I'm in the same space as you. My parents both work. They make money. Good money, and they provide for me anything I want, they will give me, and yeah.
I love that. You know, I'm always asking how we can be more inclusive. How can we really make the deaf community a part of just our community and not have to separate? You know, how do we create more accessibility? We talk about this all the time off the air. And I'm just curious to know, you know, we have the Heirs of Jamaica now. How can we make a better step in a better direction?
For me, I think learning sign language is where you start. It doesn't matter. You don't have to become an interpreter. As my father is saying, it's exposed before, but before people, it's exposed, so people are learning sign language. This is the first step, and after learning sign language, I think sign language should be taught in schools.
Absolutely.
Primary school, high school, it's a career path now.
Yes.
Give people the opportunity. You don't have to be a coder to become an interpreter.
Yes.
If you're learning from as young Jax, if you're learning from as young as Jax, you can become an interpreter. So that's the basic step. And another thing, making Jamaican Sign Language an official language.
JSL, yes.
You have to. That's the only way things will really change and really make an impact. My father said, I agree.
Yeah, I appreciate you all so much for being here. I love to say that we need to teach basic signs. I think we've gone past good morning, nice to meet you. Give me another one that we can say to one another.
Love you?
Yeah, I love you. Yeah, I love that. I love that.
And this is international. So
yeah, everybody knows that. Thank you so much. Thank you, Antoinette and Abraham, JSL interpreters, and of course, Dad Neville Aiken, deaf culture facilitator and deaf communicator, community liaison officer. Coming up next, it's time to strike up a conversation about strengthening global ties in education. So stay tuned. This one you don't want to miss.